Hilton brings you new ways to stay. With experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
From the Fifth Quarter Studio in Madison, Wisconsin, you're listening to the Coaching Youth Hoops Podcast.
They're playing
Basketball. Here's our hosts, Steve Collins. And Bill Flitter.
Hi, Coach. It's Wednesday. I'm going to start my own song. It's Wednesday.
Yeah. Coaches, welcome to Wednesday. And you're like, what? wait, what? Yeah. We're on Wednesdays now.
For the time being, Coach to do 7 days a week. Coach.
So I'm slowly getting there. We're at 3 now. No, we're launching a new podcast, and I'm super excited about. It's something that I've been thinking about for a while, and it's for parents, and it's for parents with athletes, and we want to help educate parents to be better parents with athletes, how to raise athletes the right way, how to nurture them. And it ranges from anything from mental health to nutrition, to how to deal with burnout and overuse and all of that, all of the things that a student athlete goes through. We're going to be covering on the podcast. So we would love your feedback. Again, this is a pilot podcast. If you like it, we'll continue, and we'll probably even break it out into its own podcast. We hope you enjoy.
And like Coach No, give them your email address one more time, Coach.
Email me at Coach Bill at Coaching Youth Hoops. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, suggestions, feedback.
Topics.
Yeah, topic ideas. Again, we were doing this to help our parent community.
Yeah, I think it will be great. All right, let's head off to the podcast.
All right, so today we're diving into something that's pretty relevant to me, and I think a lot of people listening. Youth sports. And more specifically, why young athletes quit. You guys sent over some really interesting research on this, a PhD thesis and a scientific article. Both get into this whole youth sports dropout crisis.
Yeah, and that crisis part, that's where things get interesting. I mean, the numbers on youth leaving sports can seem kind of alarming, right?
Yeah.
But these sources really push us to think beyond just labels.
Totally. It's like everyone's so quick to jump to dropout without really digging into what's actually going on. One thing that really struck me, especially in that PhD thesis, was how much athletes, parents, even coaches really disliked that term dropout.
It makes sense, though. When you think about it, calling young athletes dropouts kind of ignores the individual, right? They have their own reasons. And sport, it should be about choice, wouldn't you say? Like, as kids grow up, they're going to find new passions, different things they're interested in. It's natural.
Absolutely. And speaking of exploring different paths, the thesis actually breaks down different dropout types, which I found fascinating. They talk about the sampler, the participant, and the transfer. Way more nuanced than just saying everyone who quits is the same.
Right. Like, picture the sampler. You know, that kid who gets super stoked about every new hobby, dives in head first. They might try a sport for a season or two, get a feel for it, then boom, something else catches their eye, and they're off on a new adventure.
Oh, I know that kid. I was that kid, tried every sport under the sun, but I finally found what really clicked. And that's the thing, right? Not every kid who tries a sport is looking to go pro.
Exactly. Then you've got your participant. They're in it for the long haul, but even then, there's a whole spectrum, right? Some are super competitive, some are just there to have fun and stay active. The main thing is they're consistently engaged. And then there's the transfer. They might move on from one specific sport, but they're not done with being active. Maybe they try something totally different, or maybe they find another sport that clicks better.
Yeah, sometimes it's not about burning out, it's about branching out, finding the right fit as their interests change and they figure out what they're good at.
And that's key, right? We can't just assume the worst when a young athlete leaves a sport. It doesn't automatically mean they're giving up on physical activity or personal growth or any of that. The why is so important here.
And those whys rarely make it into those headlines, all the doom and gloom about kids quitting sports. But this research really suggests a much more complex picture.
Totally. And to really understand what's going on, we got to look at all the different factors that play into a young athlete's experience. The PhD thesis uses a really cool metaphor for this, a spider web.
A spider web. Okay, you got to tell me more about this.
So think about it, a spider web. It's intricate, everything's connected, you tug on one thread, and the whole thing is affected, right?
Right.
The thesis basically argues that when a young athlete leaves a sport, and I'm purposely using that phrase instead of drops out, by the way, it's often because of a whole bunch of factors, personal stuff, social stuff, how the sport's organized, all tangled up together.
Okay, so it's not as simple as blaming, say, over-the-top practice schedules or coaches who are too intense. Although the thesis did mention those external pressures a few times, especially from parents who are often the ones doing a lot of the driving around.
Right, those organizational factors definitely matter, but they're not the whole story. Mm-hmm. It's more like everything's connected. Like if you've got a coach who's all about winning, no matter what, that can really mess with a kid's sense of self-worth, make them feel like they're not good enough. The thesis even had this quote from an athlete. They said, when your coach only cares about winning, it makes you feel like you're not good enough. And that feeling, it can be crushing, especially for someone young.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like one bad experience, especially coming from someone in charge, can really color how a young person sees things, even beyond sports.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the research actually dives even deeper into that, how those experiences can stick with a young person, affect how they see themselves, their abilities long term.
So we're talking about something that goes way beyond just wins and losses on the field, right? This is about a young person's developing sense of self.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's where the whole social side of youth sports comes into play. And that's a whole other layer of complexity.
Because let's face it, those years on a team, it's like a crash course in relationships, right?
Yeah.
All the ups and downs, figuring out how to navigate those dynamics with teammates, with coaches. In fact, the PhD thesis even had a whole section on that, how athletes view those relationships. I thought it was interesting. Some of them talked about their coaches being super supportive, like real mentors, both on and off the field, right?
Yeah, for sure. And those athletes, they were clear about how important it was to have a coach who actually cared about them as people, not just players. Someone invested in their well-being, their personal growth. They talked about feeling like they belonged, like they were valued, respected, and that the coach really fostered that kind of team culture.
Which is amazing when it's like that, but we all know it's not always sunshine and roses. The research touched on those less than ideal situations too, right? Like those high pressure environments where it's all about winning can get kind of toxic, can't it?
Absolutely. And when that happens, it can really mess with the social dynamics. Some athletes described feeling constantly judged, criticized, or even like pitted against their own teammates. And when that stuff comes from the coach or it's just baked into how the team operates, well, that can be really damaging to a young person's self-worth,
Yeah, it's tough to hear that. Imagine being a kid and dreading practice, feeling like you have to choose between a sport you love and feeling good about yourself. No wonder some kids, especially in those pressure cooker environments, decide it's just not worth it.
Right. And sometimes it's not even about negativity per se. It's just life,
Yeah.
Kids have a lot going on these days, way more than we often give them credit for. School, extracurriculars, some even have part-time jobs on top of everything else. And trying to squeeze in some semblance of a social life, it's a lot to manage, even for adults.
It's true, they're juggling a lot, and something's got to give eventually. So for some kids, that ends up being the sport, especially when you factor in how much time organized sports can take up.
Oh, for sure. We underestimate that all the time. The sheer number of hours dedicated to, especially if you're talking higher levels of competition, multiple practices a week, weekend tournaments, travel, and that's not even counting any off-season training or conditioning.
And don't forget about the parents. The thesis had some pretty telling quotes from moms and dads who were definitely feeling the pressure of those crazy schedules, all the driving around. It's a huge commitment for the whole family, really.
Huge is right. And honestly, sometimes those packed schedules, they just don't leave room for anything else.
Yeah.
The research found that some young athletes, especially as they got a bit older, into adolescence, they started feeling torn. Like they'd discover a new interest, music, robotics, whatever. And they're excited about it, but those things take time too, right? So then it's like this balancing act, trying to fit it all in, and that's tough.
It's that classic dilemma, having to prioritize. And sometimes those choices, they aren't really choices, are they? It's more like a necessity. So then how do we help young people find that balance? Create an environment where they don't have to choose between sports and all these other amazing opportunities.
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. And I think a big part of it is, well, it's got to start with how we view things. Instead of seeing sports and other activities as this either thing, what if we started thinking of them more like they can complement each other?
So instead of pushing kids to go all in on one sport super early, maybe we encourage them to, I don't know, try a bunch of different things, see what sparks their interest, let them nurture their curiosity, let them develop different skills.
Exactly. Because those experiences, even the ones that don't last forever, they still matter. They help kids figure out who they are, what they're good at. Maybe they uncover some hidden talent they never knew they had.
Who knows, maybe if we eased up on the pressure a bit, let them explore, we might even see more kids sticking with sports long term. Because it's something they genuinely love, not just something they feel like they have to do.
Right. It's about that intrinsic motivation, right? Coming from a place of genuine passion for the sport.
And that takes us right back to why we're having this conversation in the first place, doesn't it? It's not about trying to force every kid to play sports forever. It's about understanding those individual journeys, why they might decide to move on. And I think even more importantly, it's about creating an environment that's supportive and empowering for all young athletes, no matter what path they choose. So it's not about keeping every kid in competitive sports forever. So then what does a positive youth sports experience actually look like? What happens when someone does move on? Like they're done with the sport or maybe they just need a break. How do we handle those transitions?
That's where I think we need to get better at this whole idea of transition, Instead of seeing these young athletes as like failures because they're not playing anymore. How do we as a society, how do we support them, help them find new ways to grow? I mean, the research even mentions this, how we need to broaden our definition of what success even means. It's not always about trophies and scholarships.
Right. Like there are so many ways to live a good life, a successful life. And yeah, maybe organized sports aren't part of the picture for everyone, at least not in the long term.
Yeah, totally. And this is where all those soft skills that sports help develop, they can really come in handy. You know what I mean? Teamwork, communication, leadership, problem solving, resilience. These things matter, and not just on a field or a court.
Totally. It's like, remember those participation trophies everyone makes fun of? Maybe we were onto something, but instead of just saying, hey, good effort, it's about acknowledging those real skills kids are building through sports. And those skills, those are valuable no matter what you end up doing in life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if we can help young people see those experiences as valuable, even if they don't go pro, that's huge. It's about helping them connect the dots, how what they learned in sports, it actually applies to the real world, no matter what path they choose.
Yeah. So how do we do that? How do we build those bridges between like the world of organized sports and everything else? Those other ways kids can grow and learn and find their thing.
Well, we could start by creating more of those intentional pathways, Give them opportunities to explore different interests. Workshops, mentorship programs, community service, internships, anything that lets them apply those skills, those sports skills, in a different setting.
Show them that, yeah, what they learned in sports, it matters. It can help them succeed in so many ways,
100%. And it's on us, the adults, to provide that guidance, that support as they're figuring things out, help them identify their strengths, set new goals, and build a life that they're stoked about, a life that makes sense for them.
This has been, I'm telling you, such an eye-opening conversation. We really dug into the reasons why some young athletes leave organized sports, busted some myths about dropout, and talked about how crucial it is to create a more supportive environment for all young people, whether they're super athletes or not.
At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, isn't it? Recognizing that every kid is different, their journey is their own, and our job is to make sure they have what they need to thrive, whatever that looks like for them.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this. How can we, parents, coaches, teachers, everyone really, how can we challenge those assumptions we have about success? How do we create a culture where different talents, different passions, different paths, how do we celebrate all of that? Think about it. And until next time, thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.